Welcome, everyone, to the Avive podcast. My name is JF Benoit. I'm your host. I'm the best-selling author of Addicted to the Monkey Mind, Change the Programming That Sabotages Your Life. I'm the creator of experiential engagement therapy and also the founder of Avive. Oftentimes people ask, what is Avive? And in its most simplistic form is that Avive is a way of life that prioritizes connection. And so what I found is over 20 years of supporting people in mental health, what I found is that we don't really truly know how to establish a connection with ourselves and a real connection with other people. And that once we learn that skill, it makes all the difference in the world in terms of us not being so reactive, in terms of being efficient in our lives, in what we're trying to accomplish and the goals that we're reaching for. So today I've invited Carrie. Carrie has been following my work. She's been in the process probably for the last, what has it been, Carrie? 12 years?
Yeah, I think we've known each other for probably close to 20 now.
Yeah. And so I'm excited that you're here today. I think that having you sort of help the viewers understand better this thing called Avive and how it's become to be and what difference can it make in their lives, right?
Yeah.
So I brought you today with the hope that you can enlighten us and by asking me questions and see if we can figure this thing out.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping you can enlighten me. So
Yeah, so hopefully we can enlighten each other, right?
okay. One thing that I have been thinking about kind of lately, because I see it a lot, like just on, Facebook or in Reddit and different areas, it seems like to be a common thing that so many people are caught in kind of a blaming game on other people. So like somebody will make a comment and then somebody will immediately kind of jump on that and like kind of blame, or even in personal interactions, there's something going like on with just instead of just blaming somebody else for something that comes up. What kind of where does that belong in the false belonging habits? That type of
Blame is like a reaction, and it could come from any of the false belonging habit. And what's important to understand is that the reaction for us logically makes sense. So I'll give you an example. I think all of us can relate, right? Let's say for people who are in a partnership, in an intimate relationship, you come home after a long day of work, and let's say your partner says, can you empty the dishwasher? Mm-hmm. And immediately there's a reaction that happens. For most people, there would be some kind of irritation. Mm-hmm. And so if you notice, what the tendency is for us to react. And so if you look at this reaction, is basically, it goes something like this, right? It's, well, I work hard all day, right? And then the partner would say, well, so did I. And so now we're like in this dynamic of it's a debate, and it appears that one person is blaming the other for their own irritation in the moment that, if you weren't so demanding, then I'd be okay. And then the other person thinks, well, but if you participate in the house, then I would be okay. So if you look at reactiveness is based in blame, right? And we don't necessarily think in terms of blame, but we think in terms of defending ourselves. So blame is a defense mechanism, right? Now, here's the thing. The source of the problem, which appears to be irritation, appears to be, the stimulus or the person that's saying, hey, can you empty the dishwasher? But the source of it is underneath that. So this is what we mean in Avive, that we are disconnected from ourselves, and prioritizing connection first means that we have to get to what's underneath. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but how do you get there from, like, if your false belonging habits have created this trail in your head that you just keep going down, and that's your automatic reaction. So what is the key to stopping, like rerouting it, basically. How do you do that in the moment?
Right. So the first thing I think that's initially is to pause the impulse to react. Okay. And in the book, I talk about the 3 doors that you can actually walk through in order to come back into connection. And the first door is the ability to, in that moment, ask oneself, what will happen if I continue this debate? So if I say, I work hard all day, and then my partner says, so did I, where is this conversation heading? Now, we can already tell, right? Mm-hmm. We know that what it's actually doing. What's that?
I said a fight's coming.
Well, exactly, right? So we don't even have to go any further. So this is the first awareness, right, that can set us free. Is like, oh, I already know if I continue to defend myself, this is gonna create so much conflict. I will end up being disconnected from myself and from the other person. So the first door to open is use that realization to then pause the topic, which is the topic is emptying the dishwasher, and saying, okay, I need to pause for a second. Just give me a few minutes. I'll be back. And then that allows sort of like, okay, I notice a reaction is happening here and it's requiring my attention, right? So that's the first practice. It's important to understand that we're not saying to our partners, I don't want to talk about this, and you have not, this is not shutting them down, right?
Okay. Yeah, because I noticed people have different views on that. Like some people want to talk, no, that's not okay to take a break. Like we need to get it hammered out right now. And other people want to take too long of a break before they talk about it. So you're saying it's more of a, just a pause to recenter yourself in a way. Is that the correct terminology?
Yeah. And one of the things that's important to understand is that we're not talking about interrupting the interaction. We're not talking about not wanting the interaction. It's the opposite. So it's important to understand that underneath the desire is connection. So if both partners understand, right, that pausing is a way to create a better connection, to create more intimacy. It isn't about, because it can be manipulated. Some people can just say, I just need, because a lot of couples will say, they will tell you they're pausing, but what they're doing is avoiding, right? They're just avoiding the situation altogether. That's not connecting. That has nothing to do with connecting. Yeah. So I would say within the intimate relationship, it's important to understand that if you say to your partner, hey, look, I need to pause for a minute and gather myself, I will be back. So it's like when you say that, then you're giving reassurance that your intention is connection. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So blame basically is a feeling of people not feeling like someone else is going to still love them or still I don't know how to word that. So basically a blame is something, how did you phrase that? What did you say when you talked about blame?
Well, blame is a reaction, right, of defensiveness. So I'm defending, but what's interesting is if you ask most people, what are you defending? They couldn't really tell you.
Oh.
And that's really strange. It's like,
see, and I got confused about it. What is it doing?
Well,
I don't know.
I mean, if you dig a little deeper, they could probably tell you a little bit, but it's mostly the focus is my partner is asking too much of me. I worked hard all day. So why are they doing that? So that's what blame, not much focus is put on the defensiveness, right? So meaning turning it inward and going, what is going on inside of me that I'm being defensive right now, right? It's like being curious about oneself. And as long as we stay, and the pause is so important because as long as we stay on trying to debate and think that the issue is about the dishwasher, we're never going to get anywhere, because the distress and the source of the issue isn't about the dishwasher being emptied. That's not the issue.
Well, so what happens if you have one person that is doing the pausing, but the other person is not? Like, how do you just resolve it as best you can with you doing that? Or like, how does that work?
Well, here's the thing. One person asked a request. They said, "Could you please empty the dishwasher?" Right?
Yeah.
So that's really the conversation that's up is,
Yeah.
will you do that or not? Right?
Yeah.
So now the other person is about to react and get into a debate. I work hard all day. So what's important is the communication need to say, "I'm asking for a pause and I will come back to discuss the dishwasher." So
Yeah.
then the other person can feel secure with that answer, right? It's going to be
Yeah.
pretty rare that somebody could say, "No, I need you to attend to it right now." And if it did
Yeah.
happen, then it's like I would invite, because now they're in reaction, right? So it's like if the two people just escalate themselves, that will always, recreate the same tension and conflict. It doesn't go beyond that.
So is reaction pretty much always like a defense mechanism then?
It is. It is. And here's the key, though, is that when we learn to pause and we master that, the next thing is for us to go sit somewhere by ourselves, or sometimes you can go walk around the block or something. But the importance is to now attune to the emotional body. And this is something we didn't receive growing up. And this is something that we haven't been taught to do. And it feels initially counterintuitive, and it feels scary, because these are not comfortable emotion to hang out in, right? Who wants to hang out in irritation? Raise your hand. Like,
Woo!
woohoo, I'm going to go
Okay,
hang out in.
so when you say attune to your emotions, then specifically, what do you mean by attuning? Just feeling them, or like?
Yes. So the process looks like this. When I do it, is I'll step aside and I will slow down my breath, and I'll start like breathing. And the next thing that I do is I literally tell myself, right? Like even with mental thoughts, I say, "Wow, JF, looks like you're irritated." And it's like I'm in a state of acknowledging this irritation. That's where it starts. Like, "Hey, you're irritated." And then I can go, "Yes, I am." Yes, I'm irritated. I work hard all day, okay. So now I'm like starting to validate my experience. You see, without judgment, right? It's not
Right.
a good or bad. And I'm not acting out my irritation either. I'm just taking an inventory of it.
Yeah.
Now, when I allow this to take place, what starts happening is there's a natural descent that happens in the emotional body. It's like layers. And the next layer will start to show up naturally. And I'll start feeling like this sense of, oh, I feel a lot of pressure. Like I just feel so much pressure. And it's just like, and then validating that again. Yeah, wow, it really looks like there's a lot of pressure here. And so then attuning to that pressure is just observing. It's a lot more of like slowing down, observing that I'm feeling the pressure. And then as I validate this pressure, the pressure starts revealing itself. That's what's so incredible about the billion bits of information that are in the body possess much more intelligence than what I could try to access with my mind initially. That's why attuning is so powerful. So as I make room for this pressure, the next thing that naturally happens is I notice, oh, wow, it seems like my okayness, like my sense of being okay, has been tied to emptying a dishwasher.
Yeah.
and it's like,
As well it should.
right. And this is where it gets to be like such a relief, because we can't access that information just by beginning to process it analytically. So, meaning that this validation, this attuning allowed me to come to that realization that the source of the distress about emptying the dishwasher is the pressure I put on myself of my okayness is related to that. If I empty the dishwasher, then I'm okay. But if I don't, I'm a bad person. It's not even logical. It exists in sort of the cells of the body because that's how I was raised, right? That's how I was conditioned. I was conditioned to believe that my doing, my performance gives me my sense of worth, which is
Yeah.
absolutely crazy, but it's what exists in the emotional body.
Yeah. And it's interesting how you have to kind of be comfortable with feeling those different emotions, because when you are having that feeling, and if you have judged that feeling as being something that is bad to have, then you're not going to really allow yourself to feel it. So it's kind of like you have to kind of make friends with, hi, anger. I'm Carrie. How are you? How are you doing today? Sadness? Okay. And so if you don't, it's that struck me while you were talking, that in order to kind of go through that emotion and to feel that kind of a release, you have to be okay, like tell ahead of time that it's okay, whatever feeling I'm feeling, not to judge it, because judgment is like a huge part of what we do to ourselves.
I love that you picked that up because I would say it's probably the most important aspect of learning to attune to oneself.
Hmm.
It's like, think of it this way. Most of us, let's say you came home and the report card, you had a C on your report card.
Hmm.
Most of us were met with parents who focused on getting back to the A, right? But
Yeah.
how often did a parent say, hey, I noticed that you went from an A to a C now on your report card. Is everything okay? How are you feeling? What's happening to
Yeah.
you? So how many parents like took the time to really attune to our own emotional body so that we can know that we're not a performance, right? But
Right.
we don't
Right.
learn that because it's all about getting back to the A, you know?
Mhm.
So this form of attuning doesn't happen that often. It does happen usually mostly in like huge distress in life. Something
Mhm.
big happens and then you get a
Yeah.
hug or your parents hold you but in the
Yeah.
little ways, it's just kind of like one correction after another. Why can't you be more like your brother and pick up after yourself? Or, like all these different corrections that keep sending the message that, oh, my experience is not that important. What's more important is how I behave, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
truth is that we can never be our behaviors. These
No.
are just habits, you know? They're
Well,
not
and
who
it's
we are.
also like it really kind of messes with you when you are trying to figure out what somebody else wants out of the situation, because honestly, I'm not very good at that, so I guess wrong all the time anyway. And so when you're in the middle of trying to figure out, okay, what do I need to do so I'm not going to get in trouble? You can't figure it out half the time anyway, so it just puts you in this state of, that's one of the things you talked about, of just like distress, just not
Right. Right.
knowing
Yeah.
what to do.
And yeah, and the thing is that these loops of these false belonging habit just keep repeating and reinforcing the same belief that somehow
Yeah.
my worth comes from emptying a dishwasher, and it's not
Yeah.
logical. So the importance of this attunement is life transforming, and this is what we mean by connection first, is that it's taking ownership to our reactiveness, to our defensiveness, to the triggers that we have. Those are signal that we're about to enter disconnection from our own sense of worth and value and our own sense
Yeah.
of love. So, and it's not logical. You can't tell yourself, hey, you're okay. It's like that
Yeah.
won't work. It's like a positive affirmation. It's like lying to yourself until you believe it's true. It doesn't happen. But if you descend in the emotional body, you can come back to the truth that already exists within your emotional body.
Yeah. I find it interesting too when I feel some of those feelings, that and just allow them. Um, it doesn't take as long as what I thought it would to kind of get back to that centering spot. I mean, it might take longer sometimes than others, but if I am trying to avoid the anger, then it takes a lot longer. If I just like, okay, I'm angry, and then it'll kind of go, pretty quickly. But
Isn't
yeah,
that true? That's
yeah,
like not only that. So what you're saying there is just profound, because when I don't attune, it keeps festering, and it festers and it lasts longer, and the conflicts just keep going and going. So
mhm,
attuning is like, even though it seems like initially it's going to take time, like you have to
mhm,
pause and take care of
yeah,
it. But the thing is that you're going to save so much time in
yeah,
debates and arguments, and all of that.
yeah,
And the other thing is oftentimes is that we think that if we enter this emotional discomfort, right, this initial, that it's gonna be really bad, right? That it's gonna be
yeah,
like, and the truth is that it's without fail, everyone, when they learn this process, they really reflect back and say, actually, I feel relief every time. Like I get a sense
yeah.
of relief.
Yeah.
So,
It's also nice, just the emphasis on feeling your feelings, because I think sometimes, at least, I mean, I've read a lot of different books on things, and sometimes it's on getting to the place where you're not necessarily feeling all those emotions, but I always felt like that was not very realistic, to think that, you're going to be in this zen-like state all of every moment of your life and never have any of those again. And so I like the fact that it's more about like embracing the emotions that you have and processing it, because aren't emotions, any emotion that you have, it seems like they're trying to tell you something. It's like they're little messengers from our body. So um, if we're judging them, they're not going to be able to give us that message.
absolutely. And the message, it took like 25 years of working diligently to
Hmm.
get to the understanding that the message at the core of our emotional body is that our sense of love and value is put in question. That is the
Hmm.
source of what happens when we're triggered. And it
Hmm.
is not a logical mental construct. It
Hmm.
is an experience in the body that's very much like a survival
Hmm.
mechanism, because our fear of being rejected by others is is constantly present, whether we
Hmm.
realize it or not, because we know that in order to survive in the world, we're actually codependent on each other, which is, it's a healthy codependency, really.
Yeah.
But what we're talking about here is an emotional codependency, which isn't true, right? It's not the
Yeah.
same as the basic physical survival, right? If you went to the grocery store and nobody would sell you groceries, well, you'd be in trouble because you
Yeah.
couldn't feed yourself, right? So that's the physical dependency I'm talking about. But the
Yeah.
emotional one is, oh, if I don't empty the dishwasher, that means I'm not lovable anymore. Like
Hmm.
that's a distorted view of ourselves and of even the other person. The partner
Hmm.
never said that, right? The person never said, hey,
Yeah.
you're a good person if you do what I say, and you're a bad
Hmm.
person if I don't. The same thing is happening for that other person. That's what's ironic, is that the other
Yeah.
person is functioning from the belief that if you do empty the dishwasher, that means you care about me. And if you do that physical thing, and then I get the message that I care about myself, then this is how I get my self-worth. Well, that's crazy
Yeah.
too, right? It's like it's both sides of the coin that are different, but they end up in the same place. So
Yeah.
the sort of the most profound thing that we could do is to be able to continually learn to build this muscle of
Mhm.
attuning, of pausing this crazy narrative that gets me to be defensive and reactive, and attuning to the deeper emotions so that this sense of relief happens, and then I get to validate my own sense of worth and my own sense of love in the presence of attunement to my body.
Mhm. Is there like a practice that you can do to help you keep that throughout the day? Like in the morning, like say, okay, it's my intention today to do this. I mean, is that helpful to to, to if something comes up, I'm going to try to take the pause and
I love how we're so oriented that way, aren't we? Like we want solutions, we want
yeah,
practical, like
come
step by
on.
step. This is how you do it, you know? And it's fascinating because attuning is something that, you know, no matter what, even now for me, I've practiced this for so long and I live by it, and I still get scared, right? I still get scared that it's like, oh, there it is, my irritation. Like, can I make
Yeah.
room for that?
Hmm.
One of the most important thing that I've learned that I can do as a step is to actually focus on connection. Meaning that I tell my brain and I tell myself that I want to be connected. I don't want to lose the connection, and I don't even have to understand what that really means. But when I get triggered, if I make the the connection, no pun intended, the connection between here's the trigger and here I'm about to lose the connection. So
Yeah.
now I'm putting the emphasis on I want to stay connected. So I know that if I don't, you know, attend to my deeper emotion that's happening now and I just keep reacting from it, I know I'm going to get disconnection. And so that alone is a focus of attention that we can do mentally, and that can change everything for sure, for sure.
And when you say connection, you're talking about your interconnection or your connection with the other person
Both,
that you're dealing
both.
with.
Right.
Okay.
So both meaning when I defend myself, do I feel better? Do I feel more connected to myself? No. And when I defend myself, do
What
I
if you
feel,
win?
what's that?
What if you win? No.
But even if you win an argument, do you feel better?
Uh, maybe mildly. No, just kidding. A little bit. No, no. It
Well,
doesn't really. It doesn't really resolve anything,
it's like
and it's
the
not. No. Yeah.
it's like the classic saying, you know, would you rather be right or happy? It's like right just means I'm going to enter a debate and I'm going to prove to you that what you did is
Yeah.
wrong, or that you shouldn't have asked me that, or you shouldn't have that many expectation.
Yeah.
Being happy means that I'm going to attune to myself and notice that, oh, I'm really feeling pressured. And I get to take ownership of that pressure. And it's not you, even though it looks like you're the one who's pressuring me. It's not what's happening. And I'm pressuring myself, and I'm thinking that I'm not an okay person if I don't do what you're asking me to do it like right then and there, you know? And so
Yeah.
it's so different. To be happy, I have to be willing to be uncomfortable, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, but people don't want to be uncomfortable. That's not a good thing. Isn't that
Well,
funny?
we
Because I don't think of it that way, really. I mean, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm uncomfortable right now, but oh, okay. You know, it's okay, it's uncomfortable. But yeah, I mean, it seems really close to. I remember you talking about something, how the physiological in your body, like nervousness and excitement were kind of, I don't know if those were the two emotions, but something like that were really physiologically really similar. And it was really your thoughts behind it that told you whether or
Right.
not. So,
Yeah. So
yeah.
they've measured this. The chemistry in the body for excitement and fear is actually the same exact chemistry. So it's just a matter of how you perceive it. And so
Yeah.
when I'm mentioning connection, what I'm actually visualizing when I think connection is that I deserve to have my experience. My experience
Yeah.
matters. And
Yeah.
that's something that we did not receive, right? Because the majority of the time growing up, what was prioritized was our behavior, was changing ourselves for the better or fixing ourselves in some way. It wasn't, oh, you're having this experience. Let me just be in that experience with you. What is it like to have this experience? So
Yeah.
that's the gift of connection.
Yeah.
Connecting as human is not a conditional way of being, right? It's not like,
Right.
well, Carrie, I'll connect with you once you're done with
Yeah.
the dishes. You know,
Yeah.
like, you know, it's like,
Yeah.
no, it's like, Oh, I'm noticing you feel stress about doing the dishes right now. Oh, what is that like? So it's not conditional on what you do or don't do. It's
Yeah.
about developing the awareness that even when it's uncomfortable, the
Hmm.
way to connect is to meet ourselves where we're at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sharing that, because I remember, like, when I was younger, feeling like I shouldn't be talking about, that I shouldn't, like, people aren't going to understand. But I was so grateful when I did start talking about it. So how there people were with you, like they had maybe similar, things happen to them, and without opening up about that, what I was dealing with or what I was working with, it didn't present the opportunity for connection in that way. Like, so it is from a place of being, well, it's vulnerable, but it's also a powerful position to be in. So even though you are, you know, sharing something that you feel is vulnerable, it really gives you this sense of connection with other people, which is really neat to see how that happens.
Right.
Um,
And it's
yeah.
important. One of the things that I discovered for myself is that establishing a sense of safety with myself first is crucial
Yeah.
to be able to communicate authentically with other people. Right.
Yeah.
So, first, I have to know that there's room for my irritation, but I have to make room for that myself. Right. And
Yeah.
then once I learn to do that, then I can be more authentic with other people about saying, I really noticed I was irritated. But if I haven't really learned, right,
Yeah.
to really attend and attune to my own irritation, talking about it with someone else is going to be probably just igniting more reactiveness and defensiveness.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
true. All right. Well, that was pretty good. So we've got the six, and we've got. Oh, did you ever do the three doors? You did one and two, but the three we talked about, right? Did we
Yeah,
resolve
so
that?
the third door is kind of interesting because it reveals itself as we're attuning, right? So when I was describing
Mhm.
this welcoming of
Oh,
the
okay.
irritation, and then what I notice is this sense of pressure that I'm under, and as I'm allowing and tuning into that, the natural sort of mind ability comes back on board and said, "Well, yeah, I feel a lot of pressure, like I'm not okay if I don't empty the dishwasher." So
Yeah.
that relief basically brings forth the belief that exists underneath that is tied to my sense of worth and my sense of value and my sense of love.
Yeah.
And what's
Nice.
beautiful, it's really an experiential way of being that brings presence, not so much a manipulating sort of thought process, right?
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, it's
That's
beautiful.
good. I've been really impressed. Like, 'cause I've sat in on a few of the, we have the groups that we do, and I've sat in on them, and it's just been really neat because I watched people. I mentioned this to you before, where I think, oh, okay, I don't know, where this is going to go. Like, will they be able to follow their narrative, or, do these different things that you go through? And every time I've been like, oh, okay, yeah, they do it. So it's really neat to see people. For one, people are have been so good about expressing what emotions they are feeling and what they are, going through, and just seeing how people start to see how that's working in their life has been really fun, because there have been, a few times I was like, okay, I don't know if this person's going to get there, and they have, like, and so, because it is kind of like simple, once it's kind of not simple at first, I guess, when you're not used to hearing it. But so that's been fun. That's been fun to sit in on the groups and then see it in action and see how people does, because it is. And you had talked about that when with the treatment center that we had, how you noticed that the people that really long lasting kind of effects was by having that switch kind of go off. So it's been really fun to see people, because you can tell it's not just for that hour, that there was
Right.
something in there that they could. And that's actually back to us, like, liking to figure it out, but that's giving them a piece of something that they can do. They're going forward, that how they can see it a little differently.
Well, it's amazing. Oftentimes we are our own worst enemy because our
Mhm.
narrative believes that the experience itself is dangerous or that
Yeah.
we won't be able to handle it. Or so we have so much
Yeah.
construct about the experience. And what's
Yeah.
interesting is when you ask people, once they enter the experience, you say, well, how was it? And they go, well, it wasn't that bad at all. And then we
Yeah.
go, well, yeah, of course. So
Yeah.
much of it is the fear, right? And
Right.
I think that's one of the things that's been really beautiful to witness over. And I think that's what you're describing is that when, in this Avive la vie process of prioritizing connection first, what it means is we pay attention to the narrative, the thoughts. So I'll basically facilitate this process, right? When people come on the podcast and we actually look at an issue or a struggle they have, I reflect back what the narrative is saying. And then I
Yeah.
tell them, I said, well, what's happening in the emotional body while this narrative is running? And then
Yeah.
they are easily able to say, oh, well, I feel really anxious. Oh,
Yeah.
let's notice that this anxiety has value. Let's notice that if we hang out there for a second, we might find out all kinds of information that we don't have access to if we just keep following the narrative. So breaking that habit, right? It's like there's a healthy relationship between the mind and the body, and it's supposed to be like a feedback loop. But for most of us, we cut off the relationship with the body and we just keep following the narrative, which leads us to be reactive and defensive. But the
Yeah.
key to get out of that is to develop this ability to tune in and attune to our emotional body, which initially to that mind, like I said, it seems so scary, but it really isn't. It's not complicated either. And it's not even like a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to enter like this deep, dark secret that I don't know about my bad past or all of this. And
Yeah.
it's like, life is not like that. We're just really smart people. And it's an incredible experience to have to get to understand the psychology of our emotional body, which is like it's like a radar that's looking to see if we belong. And that's
Yeah.
really what Avive la vie is about. Is like, well, let's tap into that intelligence that's measuring belonging, right? But
Yeah.
measuring it on false belonging habits. It's like,
Yeah.
no, that doesn't work. Let's measure, right, this way of belonging in a real experience that lives in the here and now in our bodies,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's been really, really a neat thing to witness because it was something that people just didn't think of asking themselves
Right.
during
Right.
that. So then all of a sudden, like it's not, they would, you just keep on doing what you're doing. But even though it's such a simple thing, is okay, what are you feeling right now
Yeah,
as you say
absolutely.
that? And so
Yeah.
that's cool to see.
Well, and
Well,
that
this
that
sounds
le-
like a cool book. I would like to read that soon.
yeah. So I'll be happy to. Actually, I'll be sharing a copy with you, so I'll send you
Yeah.
one. And
Okay, great.
yeah, and I want to thank you for taking the time
Yeah.
to help us kind of flesh out a little bit more what it really means to live in connection first. And I
Yeah.
want to invite the viewers to come and participate on our podcast. So you can register on our website. If you look at the link below, there's a registration form that you can fill out to apply to be a guest on our podcast to experience this connection first way of living. We also have a newsletter that you can subscribe to where we share ongoing tips on how to live in connection first. And, tell people this beautiful channel. We want to share the good news and the message with people. And thank you so much, Carrie, for helping us do that
welcome.
today.
Thank you. Thanks for answering all my questions.
All
I'll
right.
have more.
We'll do
So,
it again soon.
okay, that sounds good.